Karina, baby, your mama loves you to pieces. You know that? Today is the 13th, and so I'm not even gonna lie to you. June 11th was supposed to be. I thought it was gonna be different than what it turned out, but Mama is working on things, and it's all going to be okay. Okay? So today is June 13th. I owe you storybooks from June 11th, 12th, and the 13th, because today is now the 13th. So let's start at June the 11th. The last story I read to you was The 10 Little Monkeys. Remember that? It was on the 10th. Alright, so the 11th is Katie runs away. Katie Kitten has a new brother, George. Ma and Pa Pumpkins were very proud of George, even though he made a lot of extra work. One evening, Katie took her cuddly rabbit to Ma. "Could you make Rabbit some new pants, please?" she asked. "Not now," said Mama. "I'm bathing George." Katie went to her papa. "Will you read me a story?" she asked. "Not now, Katie," said Papa. "I'm too tired. George kept waking up last night, and I've hardly got a wink of sleep." Another day, Katie said, "Can we go to the swings?" "Not now," said Mama. I'm feeding George." Katie asked Papa, "Will you take me to the park?" "Not now, Katie," said Papa. "I've got to make a playpen for George." Mama and Papa were always busy with George these days. Katie felt left out and unwanted. She wasn't sure she liked having a new brother. So one afternoon, Katie ran away. She put Rabbit, a dress, and a special blanket in her suitcase and crept out of the house. She went into the yard and hid in the shed. "No one will find me here," thought Katie. Meanwhile, Mama and Papa had been searching for Katie all through the house. They looked upstairs and downstairs, but when she was nowhere to be seen, then they went outside. "Katie! Katie! Where are you?" they called. Mama and Papa sounded worried. When Katie heard them calling, she began to cry. She held Rabbit tightly and sobbed into his long furry ears. "Listen," said Mama. She opened the shed door and found Katie in a dark corner. Mama picked Katie up and gave her a big kiss. Papa was behind, carrying George. "Cakey?" cried George, holding out his paws. "We all miss you," said Papa. That evening, Katie played with George and helped Mama put him to bed. Then Papa and Katie had a story. Well, Mama made Rabbit a new pair of pants. "Tomorrow," said Papa when we had finished reading, "we'll all find time to go to the swings." And they did. Mama and Papa Perkins, Katie and George all went to the swings. Alright. So you see what happened? Mama and Papa had a new baby named George, and little Katie felt a little left out. They were so busy bathing George and feeding George and spending time with George, right? The Mama and the Papa were both bathing George and spending time with George, and Katie didn't get the time that she felt that she wanted from her Mama and her Papa. Alright, baby, your Mama and your Papa love you so very much. Let's do Cinderella, because that's the next book that I have that I want to read to you. Okay? Cinderella, Cinderella, night and day is Cinderella. So this is Walt Disney's Cinderella. There she is. She's cleaning. That's Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a far-off land, there lived a kindly gentleman. He had a fine home and a lovely little daughter, and he gave her all that money could buy: a pony of her own, a funny puppy dog, a beautiful dress to wear. But the little girl had no mother. She longed for her mother, and for her other children to play with. So her father married a woman with 2 daughters. Now, with a new mother and sisters, He thought his little daughter had everything to make her happy. But alas, the kindly gentleman soon died, which means he went up to heaven, right? His fine home fell into despair, and his second wife was harsh and cold. She cared only for her own two daughters. Her lovely stepdaughter, she was cruel, as cruel could be too. Everyone called the stepdaughter Cinderella now, for she had to work very hard. She was dressed in rags, and she sat by the cinder and kept herself warm. Her horse grew older, locked up in the barn, and her dog was not allowed in the house. Do you suppose Cinderella was sad? Do you think she would have been sad under those circumstances? Say, not a bit. She made friends with the birds who flew to her windowsill, and she became friends with the barnyard chicks and the geese. And her best friends of all were, guess who? Who do you think they were? They were the mice. So look at this. Cinderella has to do all this work, and even through all of her despair, she found something to make herself happy. The musty old house was full of mice. Their homes were in the attic where Cinderella lived. She made little clothes for them, and she gave them all names. And they thought Cinderella was the sweetest, most beautiful girl in the whole entire world. Every morning, Cinderella's friends, the mice and the birds, woke her from her dreams. Then it was breakfast time for the household, with Cinderella doing all the work, of course. Out of the back steps, she set a bowl of milk for her stepmother's disagreeable cat, who watched for his chance to catch the mice. The faithful dog had a tasty bone. There was grain for the chickens and ducks and geese, and Cinderella gave the grain to the mice. Then they were out of reach of the cat, of course. Then back into the house she went. So she's making sure that everyone is eating. Alright, look at her making a pie and making sure everyone's happy. Right. Up the long staircase, she carried breakfast trays for her stepmother and her two stepsisters, and down she went to the basket of mending, some clothes to wash, and a long list of jobs for her to do for the day. Now, let me see, says the stepmother would say. You could clean a large carpet in the main hall, and wash all the windows upstairs and down, scrub the terrace, sweep the stairs, and then you may rest. Oh, said Cinderella. Yes. And off to work she went. Oh, look at that. She just did her chores with delight. This was her house that her papa had got for her. And now she's doing her chores. She's staying sweet and not getting bitter. My father used to say that all the time. Don't get bitter, stay sweet. This life isn't fair. He used to say that to us all the time. Now, across the town for Cinderella's home was the palace for the king. And in the king's story, one day sat the king himself, giving orders to the Grand Duke. The prince must marry, exclaimed the king. It is high time. But your majesty, what can we do? Asked the Grand Duke. First he must fall in love. We can arrange that, said the king. We shall have a great ball this very night and invite every girl in the land. There was a great excitement in Cinderella's home when the invitations to the king's ball arrived. How delightful, the stepsisters said to each other. We are going to the palace to go to a ball. And I, said Cinderella, I am invited too. Oh, you, the stepsisters laughed. Yes, you, mocked the stepmother. Of course you may go, if you finish your work, she said. And if you have something to wear, and if... And she smiled, a horrid smile. Cinderella worked as hard as she could all the long day, but when it was time to leave for the ball, she had not a moment to fix herself up or to give a thought to a dress. Why, Cinderella, you are not ready, said the stepmother, when the coach was at the door. No, I am not going, said Cinderella sadly. Not going? Oh, what a shame, said the stepmother, she said with her mocking smile. But there will be other balls, she said. See the stepmother? This is the stepmother, baby. Look at her beautiful dress. Poor Cinderella. She went to her room and she sat down sadly, with her head in her hands. But a twirling sound made her turn around. Her little friends had not forgotten her. They had been scraping and flying about, fixing a pretty dress for her. Oh, how lovely, she cried. I can't thank you enough. She told all the birds and all the mice. She looked out the window. The coach was still there. As she started to the dress for the ball. Wait, cried Cinderella, I am coming too. She ran down the long stairway, just as her stepmother was giving her daughters some last commands. At the sound of Cinderella's voice, they all turned and stared. My beads, cried one stepsister, and my ribbon, cried the other, snatching off a Cinderella's sash. And those bows, you thief, those are mine. So they pulled and they ripped and they tore at the dress until Cinderella was in rags once more. And then they flounced off to the ball. Poor Cinderella. She ran to the gardens behind the house, and there she sank down into a low stone bench and wept, as if her heart would break. But soon she felt someone beside her. She looked up, and through her tears she saw a sweet-faced little woman. Oh, said Cinderella, good evening, how are you? I am your fairy godmother, said the little woman, and from the thin air she pulled a magic wand. Now dry your tears, you can't go to the ball looking like that. Look at that, she had some saving grace. The little stepmother showed up. Look at her beautiful dress that the mice made for her. Let's see now. The first thing you will need is a pumpkin, the fairy godmother said. Cinderella did not understand, but she brought the pumpkin. And now for the magic words. Bippity boppity boop, said the fairy grandmother. Slowly uproared the pumpkin into its pumpkin vein, and it turned into a handsome magic coach. What we need next are some fine, big mice. Cinderella brought her friends the mice, and at the touch of the wand, they turned into prancing horses. Then the old horse became a fine coachman, and Bruno the dog turned into a footman at the touch of the wand, and a bippity-boppity-boo. There, said the fairy grandmother. Now hop in, child. You've no time to waste. The magic only lasts till midnight. But my dress, Cinderella said, looking at her rags. Oh, good heavens, child, exclaimed the fairy godmother. Of course, you can't go in like that. Bippity-boppity-boo. The wand waved again, and there Cinderella stood in the most beautiful gown in the entire world, with teeny slippers of glass. Look at how beautiful everything is, baby. The prince's ball was underway, and the prince was ablaze with lights. The ballroom gleamed with silks and jewels, and the prince smiled and bowed, but still looking bored, as the young ladies of the kingdom in turn curtsied before him. Up above on a balcony stood the king and the Grand Duke, looking on. Whatever is the matter with the prince? Cried the king. He doesn't seem to care for any of these beautiful maidens. I feared as much, said the Grand Duke with a sigh. The prince is not one to fall in love at first sight. But at that moment he did. For just then Cinderella appeared at the doorway of the ball. The prince caught sight of her through the crowd, and like one in a dream, he walked to her side and offered her his arm. Quickly the king beckoned to his musicians, and they struck up a dreamsy waltz. The prince and Cinderella swirled across the dance floor, and the king chuckled over the success of his plan to find a bride for the prince, went happily off to bed. So that's it. The king was like, I found the maiden for my son, and the king went off to bed as Cinderella and the prince danced in the ballroom. See how beautiful they look? Beauty is only skin deep, but Cinderella cooks and she cleans and she works very hard for her family. So she's more than just physically beautiful. She's beautiful inside and out. And that's who the prince is looking for. All evening the prince was at Cinderella's side. They danced every dance. They ate supper together, and Cinderella had such a wonderful time that she quite forgot the fairy godmother's warning until the clock struck in the palace tower began to strike midnight. Bong, bong. Oh, cried Cinderella. The magic was about to end. Without a word, she ran from the ballroom, down the long palace hall, and out the door. One of her little glass slippers flew off, but she could not stop. She leaped into the coach, and away they raced for home. But as they round the corner, the clock finished its strikes. The spell was broken, and there in the street stood an old horse, a dog, and a girl in rags, standing at a small round pumpkin. Some mice ran chattering about them. Glass slipper! The mice cried, glass slipper! And Cinderella looked down. Sure enough, there was a glass slipper on the pavement. Oh, thank you, Godmother, she said. Oh, she thinks that she got a memento. Oh, thank you, Godmother, she said. So she had to run because the clock was starting to strike 12, so she left on the second bong. And then, look at that, she has a glass slipper left. The next morning there was a great excitement in the palace. The king was furious when he found out that the Grand Duke had let the beautiful girl slip away. All we could find was this one glass slipper, the Grand Duke admitted. And now the prince says he must marry the girl whom the slipper fits. He will not marry anyone else. He did, cried the king. He said he would marry her. Well then, find her. Scour the kingdom and find that girl. All day and all night the Grand Duke and his servants traveled about the kingdom trying to find a foot on which the glass slipper would fit. In the morning his coach drove to the front of Cinderella's house. The news of the search had run on ahead, and the stepmother was busy rousing her daughters and preparing them to greet the Grand Duke, for she was determined that one of them should wear the slipper and be the prince's bride. The prince's bride, whispered Cinderella. I must dress too. The Grand Duke must not find me like this. Cinderella went off to her room to dress, humming a waltz tune playing at the ball the night before. Then the stepmother suspected the truth. Cinderella was the girl that the prince was seeking. So she followed Cinderella to lock her in her room. The mice chattered warnings, but Cinderella did not hear them. She was off in a world of dreams. Then she heard the key click. The door was locked. Please let me out. Oh, please, she cried. But the wicked stepmother only laughed and went away. We will save you, said the loyal mice. We will somehow get that key. There's the stepmother. She's locking the poor Cinderella in her room. There's the king. He wants that little girl to be found, right? The household was in a tizzy. The Grand Duke has arrived. His servants had the glass slipper. "It is mine! It is mine!" both stepsisters cried. And each strained to push and tried to force her foot into the tiny glass slipper, but they failed. Meanwhile, the mice made themselves into a long chain. The mice at the end of the dropped down into the stepmother's pocket. He popped up again with the key to Cinderella's room. Once again, the mice hurried off with the key. Now the Grand Duke was at the door about to leave. Suddenly Cinderella came flying down the stairs. "Oh, wait, please," she called. "May I try the slipper on?" "Of course," said the Grand Duke, and he called the servant back with the slipper. But the wicked stepmother tripped the boy. The slipper fell and crashed. It splintered into 1,000 pieces. "Oh my," said the Grand Duke. "What can I ever tell the king?" "Never mind," said Cinderella. "I have the other one here." And she pulled the other glass slipper from her pocket. Oh, she had the match. She had the pair, right? There's the stepmother. She tried to trip poor Grand Duke. So off to the palace went Cinderella to the king in her own coach with the happy Grand Duke by her side. The prince was delighted to see her again. So was his father the king, and so was everyone else, for his sweet and beautiful girl won the hearts of all who met her. Soon she was the princess of the land, and she and her husband, the charming prince, rode to their palace in a golden coach and lived happily ever after. That's what every woman wants, baby. She wants to meet her prince in shining armor, right? That's what most women want. Not saying that you'd want that. Look at the goose and the ducks, right? This is a pecan. This is a goose, and these are 2 mallards. Isn't that beautiful? She lives happily ever after. Everyone goes through a lot of stuff in life, and you know, life isn't fair. Cinderella didn't have a fair life, right? Her papa married someone that had 2 daughters, so he was hoping that his daughter would have someone to play with, and that she'd have a beautiful stepmother who would treat her fairly. But that didn't happen. Cinderella's papa passed away and went up to heaven, and you know, she had to work inside of her own house to earn her keep by cooking and cleaning and doing things for her stepmother and her stepsisters, and then they tried to deny her the right to get married to her Prince Charming. And in the end, even though it took a while, she was eventually okay. Things might not be okay right now. That doesn't mean they won't be okay in the future. Eventually, someone's going to get curious enough to actually look into things. And God says what's hidden in darkness will come to light. If someone ever does anything to you, my papa always used to say, just like you have a papa, Mama had a papa who lived until I was 12. And he taught us a lot of really good lessons. My papa knew he wasn't going to be on earth for a very long time, and he knew how unfair life was just by the way that his life went. You know, like, you learn that as you get older. But my papa sacrificed himself for someone that he loved dearly. It was his girlfriend. He loved her. He used to say, "That's my light in this dark world." He loved Carrie. He loved her. He loved her. He loved her. Just like I love your papa. I will always love your papa. Just like I'll always love you. Mama will always love you, baby. And in this world, you make sacrifices and you make choices. And sometimes there's no good choices to make, so you go with the best option that you think you have at the time. So that's what you do. Alright, so Mama is going to shut this one off. This is 24 minutes so far. And I'm going to just read you another storybook because today is the 13th and this is for the 11th. So I'm going to do the 12th, I'm going to do the 13th, and then we'll be back on schedule for tomorrow for the 14th. I'm sorry I missed a couple of days. I know your papa isn't actually showing you these videos every day anyway. I know that he's busy, or whatever it is that he's doing, that's okay. Just know that your mama loves you. And just like your papa used to always say, Mama's his sun, Papa's my moon, and you're most definitely, quite literally, our rainbow baby. We will always love you. Doesn't matter what's going on with Mama and Papa. Mama and Papa will always love you, okay? I will always love you. I'll always love your Papa, too. It's just the way it is. Mama spent a lifetime with him. So, you know, it's just the way that it is. But I will always love you, my Karina. I love you, and I miss you, and I will always love you. I love you. Good night, my baby. Well, not even good night. It's good afternoon. But I'll be right back. I'm just gonna... Let's sing Boker Tov because it's daytime. Ready? Boker Tov, good morning. We sing Boker Tov, we thank you for this life. We sing Boker Tov each morning. This way we know it will be alright. Karina baby, this is something that my Papa got for me before he died because he thought it was very important. You see what this is? This is the shield of David because we are Jewish. And this is the old sign for male and female. If you have a triangle pointing up, it's the old sign for male. If you have a triangle pointing down, it's the old sign for female. This means unity. It's unity between the sexes, unity between everything. Because we are one. We are all a part of the same thing. Alright? In Judaism, we have Behold a Tov, which means that you're a link in every single generation that you're a part of. You're a part of the past, the present, and the future. Because when you grow up, you might decide to have children, which will put you as a part of our history and a part of our future. Even just you being you, you're a part of our history and a part of our future. So that's what this is. No matter what, your Mama and Papa will be linked together forever because Mama and Papa have you. Mama and Papa will always love each other. No matter what, Papa could pull any crazy stunt he wants. Papa always has to love me because he chose to have you with me. So, and I will always love you. Mama and Papa will always love you because we're a part of something together. Alright? No matter what, we'll always be family, no matter what. Mama's trying to get Papa into counseling with her. I know it's what Papa's afraid of, but it's gonna be okay. I promise you. And I love you. I love you so, so very, very, very much. I can't even express to you how much I love you and miss you. I thought that yesterday was gonna go. I thought the other day was gonna go. I thought the 11th was gonna go to the point where I'd get to see you. I'll get to see you soon, baby. I love you and I miss you, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to do videos for a couple days. Mama's been crying a lot, but it's gonna be okay. I promise you. I promise you it's gonna be okay. I love you. I will always love you. I know that you're doing certain things to survive. Mama lived with Papa for a long time too. I did things just to survive too. It's okay. I love you. I'll always love you. I love you, my baby.